Welcome back, everybody. Mitchell's there somewhere.
Welcome, welcome. Wait, I was gonna say hello, hello, hello. And then I was like, welcome, welcome, welcome.
You had to think about it for a second there.
Welcome back. Yeah, I did. Welcome back to getting that medical degree. And today we're gonna talk about Mcat Academy Bio.
Yeah, so the topic is
What?
the kidney and the skin, as I kind of hinted to in the last video when we talked about the digestion system. So let's get into it. Before we get into the actual notes for the kidney, why is the kidney important? So the kidney regulates your blood pressure. So why is blood pressure important? So high blood pressure leads to strokes, MIs, which are myocardial infarctions, which is heart attacks, clotting, kidney failure, vision loss, etc. So your blood pressure basically regulates are you going to live or die, in essence. Medication absorption, so GFR, glomerular filtration rate, and creatinine clearance, or CRCL. These are the two values that doctors will use when dosing medications for your kidneys. So they'll calculate your GFR and creatinine clearance when you come into the hospital, and based on those levels, will decide what doses of medication to give you. So if you have bad kidney function, there's a lot of drugs that can't give you. A bad kidney function is usually defined as a creatinine clearance less than 30, sometimes less than 15, but usually around less than 30, they won't use a lot of medications in. Because the kidney is pretty important. It absorbs a lot of medications. The kidney absorbs fluids, salts, sugars, proteins, etc. And it also filters your blood and removing the waste from the blood. So, like acid and stuff, it helps filter that out. So, it's a really important organ. That's why it's kind of hard to live with just one kidney. Somehow you have to do a kidney transplant, you get rid of the kidney to help someone out. It's kind of hard. Kind of hard to live. I mean, your body probably compensates too, but it's still hard. So, let's get into it. So the kidney is broken down in different pathways. So you have the excretory pathway, basically the Bowman capsule, proximal tubule, descending limb, and ascending limb, distal convoluted tubule, which leads to the collecting duct, which leads to the renal pelvis, ureters, bladder, and the urethra. That's a mouthful, but we'll get into each part. So the kidney has functional unit. The kidney is a nephron. It's also important to note that kidney function is something that doesn't really recover. So once your nephrons start dying, you're basically losing your kidney function. It's always really bad to have kidney issues early in life because it gets worse and worse. It doesn't get better. But anyways, the renal portal system is two capillary beds, which are in a series, the glomerular and the nephron. The blood flow is usually from the renal artery to the afferent arteriole, so A to A, to the glomeruli, to the efferent arteriole, to the vasa recta, which surrounds the nephron to the renal vein. Filtration is the Bowman capsule, which moves solids from the blood to filtrate. The direction and rate is determined by the hydrostatic and oncotic pressure differentials between the two different areas, so the glomerulus and the Bowman space. Secretion is the blood movement of solids from the blood to filtrate anywhere from other than the Bowman's capsule. So the kidney itself, reabsorption is the movement of solids from filtrate to blood. pH, so the kidney can regulate your pH with bicarbonate and H plus. Aldosterone is a steroid hormone. It's a secreted, synthesized in the adrenal cortex. And this usually in response to angiotensin 2 or high K or high potassium. It is derived from cholesterol and it also increases your salt absorption. An important note the thing is water follows salt. So wherever salt's going, water's going to follow it. So it's something to keep in mind. So when I say increase in water absorption, it's basically because you're increasing salt reabsorption. So water is just following that salt wherever it goes. ADH or vasopressin, which you'll see a lot called that way. It is a peptide hormone. It is made in the synthesized by the hypothalamus and it's released by the posterior pituitary. So water absorption, osmolarity. So blood pressure, blood osmolarity, and concentrated urine is kind of what that involves. So your bladder has different types of muscles in it. So you have the detrusor muscle, which is like the lining of the bladder. And it's parasymptomatic, so you really have no control what your bladder decides to do too much. You have an internal urethral sphincter, This is smooth muscle, and that is parasympathetic as well, so you really have no control over that. The external urethral sphincter is skeletal muscle, and it's voluntary control, so this is what you do have control over. So going to the nephrons, this is kind of like the pathway through the kidney. So yeah, the PCT, which I like to call it, is shorter than proximal convoluted tubule. This is where a lot of stuff's absorbed. So you see like glucose, amino acids, proteins, soluble vitamins, salt, what's involved salt, water. A lot of stuff's being reabsorbed. It's also where a lot of stuff gets secreted, such as A+, potassium, urea, ammonium, etc. When you follow the proximal tubule, you go to the descending limb of loop of Henle. So you have descending and ascending. So descending is permeable to water but not salt. There, and as the filtrate kind of moves through it, more osmotically concentrated renal medulla, water is reabsorbed from the filtrate. There's also a countercurrent system, but we'll skip that a little bit. Then, so you went down the loop of Henle, now you have to go back up. So it's kind of like a big U shape, and then it kind of turns downward. So then you have the descending loop of Henle. This is permeable to salt, but not water. So salt's reabsorbed both actively and passively. There's also a diluting segment. It's outside, outer medulla. The filtrate becomes more hypotonic compared to blood. If you don't know what hypotonic is, review your chemistry notes. DCT, distal convoluted tubule. This is where aldosterone kind of works. So aldosterone works here, so it's responsive to aldosterone and is a site of salt reabsorption and water waste product absorption, kind of like the PCT. After DCT, you have the collecting duct. Again, aldosterone ADH. This is variable permeability, so the right amount of water can be reabsorbed depending on the body's needs. So it's kind of like the aldosterone ADH kind of help absorb as much water as it needs to at a certain part of the time. So there's a couple questions about the kidney. Where would the reabsorption of glucose occur? This is the PCT, or the proximal convoluted tubule. It's like the first part after the Bowman's capsule. So the descending limb is permeable to what? This is water, not salt. The ascending limb is the opposite. So the descending is water, and the ascending is salt. So go into the skin a little bit. So you have different layers. Epidermis is the stratum basal cells, is the stem cells to keratinocytes. The stratum spinosum, Langerhans cells. Granulosomes, keratinocytes die. Stratum lucidum is only on thick skin. So the thick skin is usually like the bottoms of your feet or your palms. It's like the only thick skin in your body. The corneum is multiple thin layers, and they're like flat keratinocytes. But what are these Langerhans cells? So these are actually macrophages that are antigen-presenting cells in the skin. So they're pretty cool. And then melanin, as produced by melanocytes. This basically protects the skin from DNA damage caused by UV light or ultraviolet radiation. So the dermis. So you epidermis, and then you go a little bit deeper, you go to the dermis. This has two different layers. So the epithelial layer and the reticular layer, sensory. So yeah, Merkel cells, which are for like pressure and texture. Free nerve endings, so or pain. Mentioner's corpuscles is light touch, so it helps you like feel, I guess, light. Ruffin endings is stretch. And then you have Passian corpuscles is deep pressure and vibration. So you see you have two things for pressure, Merkel cells and Passian corpuscles. So just keep in mind what's the additional thing to do. So texture and vibration, respectively. Then you have the hypodermis, so just going below the dermis is a fat and connective tissue. This just connects the skin to the body. Main purpose. Then thermoregulation, so sweating is how you kind of cool off. It's called evaporative cooling, but it's how you get cooler. In addition to that, you have vasodilation, which is also cooling, so you're getting dilated, so it kind of cools you off a little bit. And how do you get warm? Piloerection, shivering, and vasoconstriction is warming. I honestly don't know if the skin's gonna be that much of the part on the Mcat, but just in case it is, here's the main points about it. Anything else you want to add, Mitchell?
No, that's pretty much everything. Hit the nail on the spot.
So, thanks for tuning in, guys, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.